I've got a hypothetical for the herd. What if we took the grim darkness of the far future and dropped it straight into World War I? Sprinkled in some demons, knights, and maybe a walking mechanical church, and then cranked the gore to the max setting. And if you just went, wait, holy cow, is that Trench Crusade? Well, yes it is, little cow. In today's video, we're taking my completely unhinged, borderline illegal levels of power scaling and unleashing them on one of the most insane settings you've probably never heard of. Trench Crusade is an alternative history set in 1914, where the Crusades shattered creation by opening the gates of hell. And now humanity is locked in an eternal war between the faithful, the heretics, and things that, well, shouldn't exist at all. And that's where the fun begins. Right, Anakin?
This is where the fun begins.
Because in this video, we're breaking down what this setting is, and then going faction by faction to figure out one thing. Who is the strongest unit in each faction? And hey, even if it's not 40k this time around, we're still diving straight into the cowhole. Say it with me, folks. It's time to power scale. So first things first, what the hell is Trench Crusade? For all the 40k fans sitting there wondering what kind of fever dream they just awoke to, let's break it down very quickly. Trench Crusade is an alternative history, grimdark World War I skirmish wargame created by former Warhammer staff. And it takes everything you love about endless war and somehow makes it even worse.
I'm in danger!
This is a war that's been raging for centuries between the forces of the faithful, like Christianity and Islam, against the literal armies of Satan and hell. It all kicks off with the first heresy back in 1099, when the Knights Templar in Jerusalem discovered a very questionable ancient artifact that let them communicate with demons, which, as you'd expect, went horribly wrong. Instead of closing that door and pretending it never happened, they kicked it wide open, tearing a gate straight to hell in the middle of the Holy Land. And ever since then, for the last 800 years, the world has been locked in an unending meat grinder war where faith, fanaticism, and pure nightmare fuel collide on a daily basis. What really makes this setting stand out, though, is how insane the tech and the aesthetic get. You've got diesel punk style power armor marching through trenches, soldiers wielding blessed or cursed weapons forged from magical alloys, and early modern firearms being used side by side with relics and rituals to fight back against literal demons crawling out of the abyss. It's World War I, but if the apocalypse showed up early, had giant fart monsters, and everything looks like it wants to kill you. But the best thing about Trench Crusade isn't the demons and it isn't the knights. It's the distinct 6 factions and 4 sub-factions, each with their own ideology, their own horrors, and most importantly, their own absolute monsters. So let's break them all down one by one and figure out who's the strongest unit in each faction, starting with New Antioch. New Antioch is the ultimate stronghold of the faithful, a massive fortress city built on the ruins of Antioch right beside a gateway to hell. For centuries, it has served as the front line against heretic forces, constantly reinforced by soldiers, supplies, and resources from across the world. The city is entirely built for war. Its walls are nearly unbreakable, its armies are drawn from all corners of Christendom, and its industry relentlessly produces weapons, artillery, and enhanced warriors to keep the fight going. Despite its power though, New Antioch only survives because the forces of hell are divided and rarely unite for a full-scale assault. Even so, the war never ends, and the city continuously sends out warbands to fight, raid, and gather resources in the surrounding wasteland. But who is the strongest from this faction? And well, I've got to go with the very cool hobos, the sniper priests. The sniper priests are truly elite. almost mythical warriors amongst the faithful. And don't get me wrong, these are not your typical sharpshooters. They're members of specialized sacred orders, each with their own doctrines, miracles, and weapon traditions. Among the most renowned are the orders of Saint Sebastian, Saint Gabrielle of Our Lady of Sorrows, and Saint Ludmiel of Bohemia. Each order carries its own unique approach to combat. But what truly sets the sniper priests apart is their prophetic grace, a divine ability that lets them perceive fractions of the future, spotting their targets before a conventional marksman could even line up a shot. To heighten their devotion, each priest ritually blinds themselves, abandoning sight entirely and relying on divine perception alone. The rifles are also more than weapons. In fact, they are sacred relics, often centuries old, meticulously crafted and blessed by saintly figures. For example, the relics of Saint Sebastian are said to make their bullets even deadlier against the plague carriers of the Black Grail, while the veiled snipers of Saint Ludmila of Bohemia can witness their targets through walls of solid stone, and are even said to be able to shoot around corners. The rifles of Saint Gabriel are potent against the bestial servants of hell, able to punch through the thickest of hides and armored bone. Some of these rifles have been fought over for centuries, with entire armies clashing to recover them when a priest falls in battle. Now you're probably asking yourself, how well do these guys fare in combat? Well, let me tell you, Herd, the sniper priests, besides looking incredibly cool, I mean, look at this armor, guys. Oh my god, they look so goddamn cool. They are terrifyingly effective. Swathed in the black scapular of the Passion, a blessed cloak that hides them from view and sustains them for impossibly long stretches without food or water, they strike silently from afar. A heretic could pass within inches of a concealed sniper priest and never know they were there. When enemy commanders start dropping without warning, and entire warbands begin to crumble under the invisible surgical precision of these marksmen, you know they're there. Across the Holy Land, the unseen priests of New Antioch have repeatedly turned the tide of battle, proving that sometimes the deadliest warriors are those you never even saw coming. The Trench Pilgrims are one of the most chaotic and fanatical factions in Trench Crusade, which is really saying something. Made up of civilians, sinners, and the God Touch, who are driven to war by visions, guilt, or divine revelation. They also have some really pippin' fits. I mean, look at those hats, guys. Unlike the organized military might of New Antioch, these are not trained soldiers, but massive, disorganized mobs led by prophets, charging into battle like a bunch of nutballs.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
Armed with whatever they can find, ranging from outdated firearms to crude melee weapons and explosives, they throw themselves at the forces of hell. Some are even blessed or cursed to return from death as martyr penitents, while others, like the stigmatic nuns, grow stronger the more they suffer, turning pain into power. The Trench Pilgrims are not officially sanctioned by the church, but they are tolerated, and their presence on the battlefield is welcomed by the forces of the faithful. The strongest of the traveling hobos are the anchorite shrines. These are towering 12 to 15 tall metal behemoths, functioning as both walking war machines and mobile altars of worship. Nearly impervious to damage, they are powered by roaring diesel engines and covered in holy relics, icons, and prayer scrolls. Inside the pilot, usually a monk or a nun, is permanently entombed, suspended on spikes, and barbed hooks, so they remain in constant agony, believing their suffering brings them closer to God. Oh my god, that is so tough. Even crazier than that are the anchorite shrines in battle. They wield massive weapons like adamantium, Catherine wheels, and bone-crushing maces, tearing through enemies with overwhelming force, while acting as the spiritual and physical centerpiece of any pilgrim assault. Some pilgrims even volunteer to be bound to these weapons as a final act of devotion, turning themselves into living sacrifices in battle. What the hell is that? I'm not kidding, guys, this setting is so insane. Like, we're going down the cowhole very briefly here, but this setting is one of the coolest because not only is it World War I, but it's World War I meets medieval and demonic themes.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
And it's also very silly, like this for example. These pilgrims are so fanatical, they're literally just tying themselves to giant mechs to die for their devotion. Great job, whoever wrote that, you're a genius. But back to the subject, the Anchorite Shrines are easily the strongest unit from the Trench Pilgrim faction. But wait folks, if you thought this faction was cool, just wait till you see the next one. The Iron Sultanate was born in the aftermath of the gates of hell being opened. In that moment, a divine miracle manifested a great iron wall, rising in the Sultan's lands as a sanctuary for the faithful. A massive migration followed as believers from across Europe, Asia, and Africa fled towards the wall. Countless perished along the way to heretics and demonic forces, but those who survived sealed themselves within, forming the Iron Sultanate, an unbreakable empire dedicated to resisting the horrors of hell beyond. Since its founding, the Sultanate has endured constant assaults, but the Great Wall still remains the greatest defensive structure in the entire world. Within its protection, knowledge flourishes. No, seriously, these guys are cooking up some very nifty stuff. From powerful artillery to assassins that are able to bend space and time, and lions whose speed and ferocity is said to be nearly unmatched. They even have janissaries whose physical attributes are augmented by potent elixirs created by mystic arts. But would it surprise you that none of these guys are the strongest? That title goes to the Brazen Bull. Because while the Sultanate dominates in artillery, most of their siege weapons are far too massive to move outside of the Iron Wall. And that is where the Brazen Bull comes in. A massive war construct engineered by the scientists of the Royal Artillery House after centuries of experimentation. This gigantic bull has absurd strength and durability and is able to physically tear apart even the most powerful demonic entities. They are encased in thick, forged bronze armor, layered with protective talisman, making it so they are built to endure as much as they destroy. But what truly makes them insane is their ability to carry around and operate weapons that even the elite janissaries physically can't carry, including heavy flame cannons, volley guns, and massive blessed weapons. Sadly, like so many other Trench Crusade characters, we unfortunately don't have any badass feats for the Brazen Bull to truly quantify how powerful it is, besides the throwaway line that it can rip apart demonic entities. Still, that statement means a lot, and I would say the Brazen Bull easily scales over anything else the Sultanate has to throw at the gates of hell. And yet, even monsters like this one are still fighting for something at least. Because on the other side of this war, you don't have engineered beasts or holy constructs, but humans who chose hell. It's now time to talk about the antagonists of Trench Crusade, starting with the Heretic Legions. The Heretic Legions are the main military force of the Damned, made up of countless humans who have bent the knee to hell. In the world of Trench Crusade, a full third of humanity has turned, building entire civilizations devoted to darkness, sacrifice, and the destruction of God's creation. To even join their ranks, recruits must survive a brutal pilgrimage to the gates of hell, enduring unimaginable suffering just for the chance to be accepted. Those who survive are branded, bound eternally to their infernal masters, and forged into soldiers of damnation. Within the legions, true power is measured by how far one is willing to fall. The strongest rise through nightmarish trials, like the anointed, who walk into the fires of hell and returned scorched, scarred, and monstrously empowered, able to wield weapons and armor far beyond human limits. Others descend even further, becoming twisted abominations such as the Chorister, whose unholy hymns, hell's own warped version of Bruno Mars, drive all who can hear to the brink of madness. But even among the damned, the strongest in the Heretic Legions are the Death Commandos. They represent the absolute peak of stealth, fear, and martial prowess. Taken as children and trained directly within the seventh circle of hell, they are taught the arts of assassination, by the souls of history's greatest killers and honed by the personal guard of archdevils. And even crazier, as the text says, they learn to slither as serpents through the battlefield, leaving murder in their wake.
I'm a snake.
By the time they leave Hell, Death Commandos are the most feared soldiers of the Heretic Legions. Literally everything about them is designed for killing. Beyond being trained as master assassins, they are equipped with stealth technology that bends light around them, allowing them to bypass even divine sight. Their poison claws, forged in hell and quenched in the river Styx, carries venom more potent than anything in the mortal world. Their training and arsenal makes them masters of infiltration and allows them to eliminate targets before anyone even knows they were there. The most infamous of the Death Commandos are the three masters: Cain, Barabbas, and Haman, who assassinated the Supreme Pontiff, the High Prophetess Aelia, and the Holy Roman Emperor in 1894, plunging the church into chaos and allowing the Heretic Legions to launch a lightning offensive across Europe and the Holy Lands. But while the Death Commandos strike fear across the battlefields of the living, there exists an even darker shadow within the ranks of the damned: the cult of the Black Grail. The cult of the Black Grail is the living embodiment of plague, pestilence, and unholy corruption, a faction where disease and demonic power merge into one all-powerful force of devastation. They are pretty much Nurgle from 40k, just less green and more, whatever the hell that is. While the Heretic Legions rely on martial might, the cult wages a war of infection, decay, and entropy. This all stems from Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies, who stands apart from the other Lords of Hell, as instead of acting mainly through his mortal followers, whenever he gains supremacy in the bitter power struggles of the Archfiends of Hell, he sends forth his deadliest curse, which is the Black Grail. This cursed cup spews forth clouds of venomous hellflies, swarms of scorpions, locusts, and other plague-infested insects. Spreading with terrifying speed, they consume everything in their path, and no living thing is spared. Those who do survive are infected, causing their flesh to bubble and tumors to grow uncontrollably. Pus and blood saturate the land, and every living creature becomes a potential victim for the Grail's corruption. But even worse, after being infected, they become vessels to spread the corruption of their master even further, forming warbands that strive to find and infect life of any kind. These infected construct grotesque monuments and altars from the remains of the afflicted, mocking the prayers of the faithful, and creating shrines of pestilence in the honor of Beelzebub. Yet the Black Grail's true terror lies not in the swarms of disease, or the half-living warbands it produces, but in the hegemons of the Grail, the pinnacle of Beelzebub's dark designs. A hegemon of the Black Grail is born only when the corruption of the Black Grail spread unchecked, resulting in the gathering of countless thralls, slaves, heralds, and other servants of Beelzebub into one place. Through a truly horrifying ritual, the cultists chant unholy hymns, sacrificing thousands or even millions of innocents whose bodies are arranged into a complex sigil. The air then thickens with disease, swarms of flies form ominous patterns, and bolts of corrupted blood strike the earth. The imprisoned living and dying are drawn into the center of this grotesque ritual and merge into a massive, quivering mound of flesh and corruption.
I'm going to throw up.
Over 13 long days, this mass reshapes itself into a towering, armored titan, crowned with swarming insects, until the fully manifested hegemon of the Black Grail emerges. A walking nightmare and the physical embodiment of Beelzebub's wrath on Earth. The hegemon is swarming with the winged children of Beelzebub and infused with the intelligence, cunning, and malice of a fallen angel. The official Trench Crusade Codex states, the powers of a hegemon are beyond those of any other creation of the Black Grail. It can extend the corrupting power of Beelzebub into graves and morgues, so that even in death, there is no escape or respite from the Lord of Flies. In battle, the 100-foot monstrosity can challenge entire battalions of infantry and whole tank corps. It has the twisted and foul wisdom and genius of a lordly fallen angel. Only the most devoted and powerful holy warriors like saints, paladins, or miracle workers have even stood a chance of opposing such a monster. Across the history of the Great War, in fact, only 2 hegemons have ever risen, and both were slain by the faithful. One hegemon fell to the living saint Joan of Arc during the Corpse War, and another to a paladin who perished in the process. These titanic confrontations serve as a grim reminder of the Black Grail's power and of the terrifying costs required to oppose it. But Beelzebub is just one of 7 archdevils that make up the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, the most evil of all factions within the world of Trench Crusade. The Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent stands as the ultimate seat of infernal power, Hell's supreme court of archdevils. Each of the 7 heads embodies one of the deadly sins: wrath, envy, lust, pride, sloth, gluttony, and greed, each exerting its will across the hierarchy of hell and shaping the course of the Great War against creation. Their decrees are absolute, yet their politics are a ceaseless maelstrom of treachery, ambition, and carnage. While Beelzebub channels his wrath through the horrifying plague of the Black Grail, the remaining heads of the serpent orchestrate legions of death and chaos to destroy the faithful. Under the court's guidance, the world has become a battlefield of sin and corruption. Now, I will say the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent has some of the most powerful beings in the entire setting, making it truly impossible to pick just one unit. And that's why I decided to cheat and make multiple selections. For the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, I have picked the Praetors, the Hunter of the Left-Hand Path, and the Hell Knights. And together they showcase the court's terrifying martial prowess. Let's start with the Praetor. Praetors are fearsome demonic commanders within the domains of hell, serving as field generals and magistrates for the archdevils of the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. Though often mistaken by mortals as devils themselves, Praetors are actually the twisted offspring of beasts and fallen angels. Towering and multi-faced, they possess 3 mouths that have independent thought and speech, weaving hypnotic lies and corrupting words to manipulate both mortals and demons. Their wings, lined with fang mouths, vomit blood that fuels their goetic magic, granting them additional destructive power. Before we move on, I feel like we should talk about goetic magic for a second. Goetic magic is fueled by mortal agony, which disrupts God's plan for the universe and creation. This disruption releases a primordial energy that those who serve hell use to physically alter reality, time, and space. With this magic, you can heal yourself, force your enemies to suffer extensive pain, reshape reality, and even cause flesh to wither and decay instantly. All of this is an upscale to the Praetor, who should be almost a master in using goetic magic. Praetors command cohorts of yoke fiends and hell knights, leading hunting parties, desecrating holy sites, and recovering ancient relics, all while skirting the direct constraints of heaven due to their martial mortal heritage. They are highly versatile, trained in both brutal combat and sorcery, and wield cursed weapons that defy the very laws of creation. I'm not kidding, guys, this is stated directly in the Codex. These weapons are not subject to the laws of physics and time that Yuhaba has set. Now, if a Praetor is successful in combat, they can acquire boons, increasing their power even further, while failure might result in their destruction or transformation into Hell Knights. The most exceptional of the Praetors may even achieve Dark Apotheosis, shedding their mortal remnants to ascend fully into an archdevil, joining the ranks of the court itself. Next, we have the Hunters of the Left-Hand Path, who are some of the grossest looking dudes I've seen in my cow life. These hunters are elite, solitary warriors of hell who stalk its primordial wilderness, pursuing both monstrous beasts and mortal prey. They are also practitioners of vile goetic magic, divining omens and portents through the blood and entrails of their victims, which once again upscales the hunters because there seems to be no limit to the power that goetic magic brings to the table. They are also both physically and magically augmented, Hunters transform their left arm through satanic rituals into a warped weapon, often taking the form of a hunting bow that fires blood-forged arrows that are able to kill, paralyze, or torment their victims with visions of inevitable death. They also wield tormentor chains, barbed, extending hooks that inflict unrelenting pain and subjugation. Finally, we come to the Hell Knights, who are absolutely terrifying elite shock troops of the court. Created by twisting, crushing, and imprisoning lesser fallen angels or mighty mortal champions within their own flesh, their bodies are distorted beyond recognition, glaring eyes, shrieking organs, and warped limbs. Their minds are now consumed by a single, jagged obsession with destruction, yet they retain enough of their brains to wield ancient weapons like greatswords, battle axes, and older muskets, crafted deep within their demon lord forges, surpassing even the most advanced mortal arms in effectiveness, while floating corpse candles serves as conduits for goetic magic, amplifying their martial prowess. Wow, didn't I tell you the court of the seven-headed serpent was quite busted? I know I picked 3 units from this faction, but come on guys, you can't just cut 1 or 2 of these guys from this list. I mean, all 3 of these fellas are using goetic magic. One of them is as close to an archdevil as you're gonna get while still being immortal. Another has ritualistically sacrificed one of their arms to create a demon-forged bow. And the third is a literal angel shoved into a black suit of armor. And all of them are enhanced by goetic magic. Like, are you kidding me? It's clear that some of the most terrifying beings in the entire setting dwell in hell. Oh, that kind of rhymed. Now we've covered 6 of the main factions in the game, but that doesn't mean we're done. Obviously, we still have plenty of time left in this video, and there are a handful of minor or sub-factions that deserve their own spotlight. These include the Synod of Strategic Prophecy, the Great Powers of Europe, the Path of the Beast, and finally, the military orders of the Crusader Knights. Let's start with the Synod of Strategic Prophecy. The Synod headquarters, the Valley of the Word, is a hidden temple tucked deep in a remote European gorge, a sacred site said by some to be the first place on Earth where creation began. The valley amplifies the echo of God's words, and all who enter feel the oppressive weight of divine scrutiny, which exposes the deepest recesses of the soul. Here the Synod's vast array of towers and arcs of the signal constantly attempt to capture the words of creation. But on the battlefield, the Paladins represent the Synod's ultimate answer to the seemingly impossible challenge of confronting the demonic legions directly. Because approaching the gates of hell is almost impossible. Thus, Paladins were created to be the near-perfect human warriors, to fight the battles that actual humans could never do. Paladins are able not only to approach the gates of Inferno, but to enter hell itself, undertaking missions of extraordinary danger and returning, if they survive, to report their deeds. Paladins are physically and spiritually nearly perfect. Their armor is forged from rare materials and must be maintained with extreme care, for each mission into hell exposes them to the unique and deadly conditions of each circle. From noxious fumes to frozen voids below absolute zero. Every crusade is undertaken alone, and failure often means death. They are deployed sparingly, only under direct orders from the Council of Saints, and guided by the Synod's prophetic tacticians, tasked with missions like exterminating high-ranking demonic nobles, destroying Black Grail laboratories, or interrogating devils with fire and the blood of the Lamb. Originally, there were 12 paladins, but now, in the current setting, only 9 remain. 2 fell in battle, and 1 is rumored to have turned traitor. And although they have tried, the church can't seem to replicate the paladin process, meaning if these 9 fall, then humanity will have lost one of its greatest weapons. Although we don't have many direct feats from Trench Crusade, we do know that a paladin once defeated a hegemon. Like we discussed earlier, the physical embodiment of Beelzebub in flesh and bone. Even though the encounter ended in a mutual destruction, the fact that a paladin could best one of these nightmares speaks volume about their power level. Honestly, I can't wait for more Trench Crusade lore to come out. It'll give us even more ways to scale these powerful fellas. But just like the court of the seven-headed serpent, I'm also going to cheat for this faction because I'm going to pick a second powerful unit. Next up, we have the Observers, elite warrior monks trained to be the living instruments of God's divine will. These warriors spend almost their entire lives in absolute solitude within the temple of the word, honing their minds and bodies to perfection. Their training is so rigorous that even the slightest disruption, like an unexpected sound, can sever their connection to the voice of God. They only leave their silent communities when summoned to battle, but when they do arrive, oh man, oh my, their presence alone can decisively tip the scales in favor of the faithful. This is because the Observers wear the Oculus helmet, a miraculous device that attunes them to the voice of God. Through this device, they can perceive the immediate present, past, and to a limited degree, the future. Yes guys, you heard that right. The Observers are a light version of Conrad Gers. This allows them to execute martial feats far beyond any ordinary human's abilities. In addition to this fine-looking helmet, their knowledge of the words of God grant them another unique ability. They can issue commands to anyone they address, compelling obedience even in enemies for a brief moment. So pretty much a fully focused observer is nearly untouchable, especially when guided by their divine foresight. But just like Conrad Gers, this connection comes at a terrible cost. The voice of God never ceases ringing endlessly in their ears. Sleep becomes impossible, and to survive the strain, they rely on mind-altering drugs, enduring unimaginable mental and physical stress to carry out their duties. So although the Court of Hell has a lot of heavy hitters, the Synod of Strategic Prophecy also brings some powerful fellows to the table. On a completely off-topic note, doesn't this observer kind of look like that droid from Emperor Strikes Back? You know, the one that goes, is it just me? Oh, it's just me, isn't it? Oh boy. On to the next faction, the Great Powers of Europe. The European Great Powers of Trench Crusade are a fractured yet fanatical collection of nations transformed into a permanent military-industrial complex by an 800-year war against the legions of hell. From the democratic bastions of the Free State of Prussia to the floating fortresses of the Crown of Britannia, these states have abandoned traditional diplomacy in favor of a blood tithe to sustain the defense of Christendom. United under the religious authority of the Papal States, but scarred by the 1894 assassination of their high leaders, these powers funneled their wealth, resources, and most importantly, their manpower into the meat grinder of the Holy Lands to prevent the total collapse of the mortal world. Among their strongest, we actually have a named character this time around. Thank God, and get this, she even has a feat. Her name is Frau Friederike von Goltz, and let me tell ya, she delivers, especially with a name like that. Coming from a prestigious Prussian bloodline tied all the way back to the Teutonic Order, Friederike pushed into a role that women were heavily discouraged from entering and training relentlessly. But enter she did, mastering firearms, close combat, and swordsmanship under veteran warriors. And after over a decade of war, she carved her way up the ranks through brutality and skill, stacking up scars and earning the loyalty of her troops. Her defining feat comes when her commander was beheaded by a Hell duelist. Instead of breaking or fleeing, Friederike grabbed her fallen commander's tank splitter sword and immediately disemboweled the same enemy that had killed him. How about that for some girl power? Friederike is also a Hauptmann, which means she is always at the front where the fighting is worse, and is usually suiting up in handcrafted armor and wielding an alloy blade ready to cut down anything in her path. I don't know about you guys, but women in that type of armor wielding a giant sword just does something to me on the inside. I feel like a dog ready to start barking, which is perfect for the next faction we're covering, the Path of the Beast. The Path of the Beast is a faction that is completely different from anything we've covered so far in this video. This faction rejects both heaven and hell entirely. Instead of serving gods or devils, they embrace something far older, a primal force known as the Beast, which has existed since before civilization, lurking in humanity's oldest myths of werewolves, demons, and flesh-hungry monsters. This path offers people an escape from suffering, as there is no fear, guilt, or pain, just the freedom of the hunt. Many accept, becoming supplicants who willingly abandon their humanity and begin transforming into savage, half-bestial creatures, driven by their instinct and bloodlust. Their power comes from the bestial runes carved into their flesh, which grow stronger when they gather in packs, allowing them to unlock devastating abilities. As they descend further down this path, they become more and more monstrous, with the strongest embodying apex predators and leading violent hunting packs against both civilization and the battlefield. Those who follow this path shed their humanity as they walk this twisting, ever-changing labyrinth of creation, losing memories, their identity, and form as they regress into something more primal. Most who trod this path ultimately fail, either becoming mindless half-beasts or getting lost entirely. But the rare few who reach the end achieve something far worse. These chosen few are called zygotic lords. They have the power to break and remake their own existence, giving them the ability to reject God's design entirely. Zygotic lords are the fully realized embodiments of the beast, reshaped according to their own will. But what makes them truly terrifying, outside of, being a ginormous, disgusting ball of mush, is their mere presence. Their voice can send followers into a frenzy, while enemies are mentally dragged into the beast labyrinth, often losing their minds completely. The last subfaction we have are the military orders of the Crusader Knights, who are by far the coolest. I saved the best for last. The Crusader Knights' origins lay in the aftermath of the First Heresy, when the betrayal of the Knights Templar proved that even the most devout could fall, and the Church made a brutal decision. No Crusader Knight would ever be trusted again without absolute, irreversible proof of their loyalty. Every knight now swears an oath of penance, binding their very soul to a single purpose: to die in glorious battle against the forces of hell. To enforce this, every Crusader Knight undergoes the 4 rites of passage, enhancing them and transforming them into something that is truly not human. The first rite entails intense indoctrination, just like some other transhumans I know. Their minds are flooded with doctrine and propaganda until their faith becomes absolute. Are we sure these guys aren't Space Marines? Then on top of that, through chemical baptism, their bodies are altered, granting them immense strength and endurance at the cost of their lungs and their voice, forcing them to rely on mechanical breathing systems and amplifiers to even speak. At the third rite, things get even worse, as the Church carves their devotion directly into their flesh and bone, inscribing Holy Scripture into their very being so that even the thought of betrayal means instant death. Finally, during the fourth rite, they are subjected to powerful visions and drugs that open their minds to divine whispers, further cementing their fanaticism. Damn, what type of shrooms are these guys taking? There are thousands of Crusader orders across the world, ranging from massive church-sanctioned forces, like the Knights Hospitaller, to smaller, more extreme sects that border on heresy. Many now travel in massive moving fortress shrines, known as chapter holes, constantly seeking out the most brutal war zones. And at the very peak of these warriors are the elite Crusader Knights who wear Maximilian class armor, some of the heaviest and most devastating personal war gear in the entire setting. These suits of armor transform already enhanced knights into walking fortresses, sacrificing mobility for insane durability and power. Built from ancient, possibly divine or even pre-human designs, these hulking suits are equipped for brutal close quarters combat and heavy firepower, including massive weapon systems that can tear through armored vehicles and monstrous demonic entities alike. Each suit is rare, heavily customized, and supported by a team of attendants who maintain its massive engines and keep it operational in battle. The armor demands constant fuel and upkeep, but in return it turns its wearer into something closer to a siege engine than a man. Honestly, bias aside, look at these guys. Don't they look like Pacific Rim meets the Crusades? And even you have to admit, that's peak. So now we reach the end of this video. We've gone through 6 factions and 4 sub-factions from the wonderful fictional world of Trench Crusade. If you guys want to see me tackle Trench Crusade again, since there's a ton more lore out there, let me know down in the comments. Shout out to everyone supporting my channel, especially my YouTube and Patreon members. Impossy Paul, Tyler Pick 7, Musty, Keydry, Seth Capazilla, Lag, Coney Karkle, Caleb White, Dinkleberry, and Omar. You guys are the absolute goats, and I appreciate each and every one of you. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Stay milked, and I'll see you all in the next video.